Recording in
that
progress.
will make our process much more efficient. And I did talk with the finance committee last month, but here's the diagram. I drew this.
Yeah, this is on the whiteboard. It's the same diagram.
This is how we currently do our biennial budget. We have all these Excel spreadsheets. We have one huge one for salary and benefits for all 70-some employees, including all of you, you're on it. We have capital spreadsheets, mostly coming from Cody and his folks. And then we have an operating cost spreadsheet. So we have all these people working on all these different spreadsheets. We all have to dump them into our current financial system, which is called Bias Financial System. Bias is a pretty good financial system. We do not need to replace Bias. It works for processing payroll, for paying our accounts payable, our accounts receivable, our utility billing. It does not work for budgeting. It is a software built for annual budgeting. We do biennial. So we have to take all of this information and drop it into Bias. Once we have it into Bias, I have to balance it between Bias and these Excel spreadsheets to make sure that everything's in there, that it's all balanced. We then take all of those numbers and I dump them into a Word document. Once I have it in the Word document, then I create a PDF file. And that PDF file is what you currently have as a budget book, right? It's on our website. Anybody can access it. It's just it's a PDF file. So say we are in our budget discussion and someone says, well, I want to give another $50,000 to this program. So now I got to go back up here, drop $50,000 in here, go back, put it back into Bias, go back into Word, back into PDF. This is a balancing nightmare for me, for the management team, and the whole time. And I mean, the budget process we'll start in July, August, and we go through the first part of December. It's just a massive balancing act for me and all of us. And that's key for us, is to make sure that the data we present to you is accurate, it's transparent, it's balanced, and that we can have trust in the numbers that we're bringing forward, right? So what I'm proposing is this software called ClearGov. Now, it's a cloud-based software, so we don't host it on site. We take all of our account codes out of Bias and we export them into this ClearGov. And then all of the management team, we are all working in this one product. We are building all the personnel costs, we are building all the capital, we are building all the operating costs. They're all being built into this software. This software will then create a document that we put on our website. And if you want to go look at sales tax, table of contents, click sales tax, boom. You're at sales tax. You not only can see the actual numbers, but it will create pretty charts and graphs for you. So it's user friendly, not only for staff, but also for council members and for the public. And that's huge, because right now, this is not friendly to anybody.
Is that the one that we're using presently, is that cloud-based as well?
No, it's on site. We host it, it's on-prem, they call it. So in the staff report, I did reach out to some of our comparable cities who've been doing an RFP process to replace their entire financial system, which would include a budget piece that would be more effective for us. And you can see in the staff report, one of them was the implementation of $175,000, $46,000 annually. The other one was the implementation of $330,000 with an annual of $150,000. I do not feel that this city is in a place where we need to replace our whole financial system. I think for the most part, it's fine for what size that we are, but we need a better budgeting tool. And so ClearGov, I think I said it's hosted on the cloud. It would be about 25,000 to implement, and then annually it would be about 25,000. So not nearly the cost of just replacing the whole financial system, but it will give us the tools that we need to build a better budget for all the stakeholders. So be happy to answer any questions. Do I call or?
In reference to ClearGov, moving bias into ClearGov, and you talked about how it can go up online. Will our previous stuff be also transferred in, or upon, like we started this year, if somebody wanted to look at 2010 to 2015 or 2015 to 2020, something like that, all that information still have to go through an older way of looking at it?
So we will put some historical data into ClearGov. We would have to talk to them about how much we'd want to put in there. We're going to export, so we would export 2023 and 2024 for sure into ClearGov. I don't know about years prior. We can ask them that because it is nice to have that historical data so that if you run a sales tax graph, you can see where we were from 10 years ago forward. So it's something that we would have to talk to them about. I'd have to find out more information. So once we have the budget built in ClearGov, then we take that and we import it back into bias so that when we are processing payroll and accounts payable and that sort of thing, we're looking at the budget in bias. So this is not replacing our financial system. It's just giving us a budgeting module that we're missing in bias.
Back to what you said about people who just come in and look, like the sales tax.
Mhm.
Are you talking about how much the state collects overall or individually
How
or?
much the city collects.
Okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
and like on an ongoing basis, so if I went in January and saw we collected $10,000 and went back in July and we collected 20,000 that month,
So,
like that detail or this?
so once we build, so there's different modules, we could add I think they call it transparency module, where I would push all the revenue and expenditure data up to ClearGov every month. So we would have our budget, but then I would push actual numbers to ClearGov every month. And then that would be available for users to look at as they progress throughout the year. But I feel like the first step is to get the product, build the budget, and then kind of move forward from there.
So that would be a simplistic way as a user to look at things versus the whole 160 pages of the
Right,
quarterly.
exactly. And if you're somebody that likes to look at numbers, you can look at the actual numbers. If you're somebody that's just wants to look at a graph, you can just look at the graph. So.
I'm curious if we looked at I understand there's a cost to operate in the cloud. And it's probably an annual cost for us to, I'm curious if we looked at the option of purchasing the software and having it as our present situation is under, under our roof on our own personal servers.
They don't offer on-prem for this product. It's all cloud-based.
Okay, so did we look at any other possible options that reach us, get us to the same goal? My concern is that with these cloud-based situations, they've kind of got us over a barrel. If we decide we want to leave, they own all that information. That's in their cloud. So it's a concern, and I'm wondering if there's an option for us as our IT department. Even though it's two guys, they're pretty smart guys, and they're able to do a lot of stuff. I'm just curious if that was an option that we looked at all.
So I haven't looked at on-prem because honestly, even bias, we are one of few customers still on premise. They, of course, they're not giving us many of the upgrades for on-premise. If you want the full upgrades, you have to be on cloud. And I don't know if there's any products that we could actually purchase for on-premise. I mean, we're too big for like QuickBooks or something like that.
Right, I understand that.
So we can talk to Jason and get more information.
This was recommended by our IT director, Jason. He did look at other options as well, but we can ask though, just to see.
If he's looked at it, then I don't question those guys.
We can ask though, to see if there were any and if, if it's available, what the prices would be and stuff like that.
If you look at the world now, there's very few things that aren't cloud-based. All the software companies going that way because that's where the money's at. That monthly revenue. Well, you're not a computer company.
But I have a computer system and I have, all I have to account for a lot of revenue coming in and out.
Like QuickBooks.
Well, my point is
the same.
I'm talking about my POS system. There's options for, in fact, everybody is moving to the cloud base. But once again, the clear problem there is if you decide you want to go somewhere else, you have to negotiate your information from these folks as opposed to where I'm at now. If it's all mine.
He's still learning how to log into his email.
I know, we get it.
Tracy, we're kind of in a unique position that Mr. Doug's there. We're grandfathered in because Micros doesn't sell that stuff anymore. We can't use it anymore. If you want to be a new POS system, you can't.
And just so you-
That's that. There's actually not quite like you think.
all the information in here is in here, right? So I'm not gonna lose any of our historical data, financial data, it's just because it's in here.
Right, but will the new generated information be transferred back and remain in our server?
So we'll build the budget and then we'll pull it back into our
Perfect.
financial system.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Because it's cloud-based, again, can we get confirmation from the IT, if possible, that that the data that's stored there is our data, that they don't get to sell it, they don't get to do anything else with it. And in addition, that we have the that it has the security protocols and has a good reputation of security. Because we don't need somebody all of a sudden hacking into our budget
Yeah.
and messing with it.
And also, if you look at the staff report, I did list out some other cities that have this. So if you want to go to their website, look at their budget book, you can see, kind of what I'm talking about. So going forward, we'll get the questions answered. I would like to bring this to a regular council meeting in, I don't remember where we have it,
We're at the end of the month,
at
aren't we?
the end of the month.
But when we come back, we'll have those questions answered.
One question I have, how many personnel hours do you think this would save, like per week, per month?
A lot.
A lot.
Is there a,
Like a rough estimate.
Yeah.
You can lowball me if you want even.
I don't even know.
Cody too and
Cody and I,
department heads?
we spend hours and hours. I mean, we start the budget process in August, and that's pretty much what I'm working on through October.
Probably hundreds if you add up.
Lay off any people because of this?
No, but I'll have less gray hairs.
Allows them to be more efficient in other places.
Yeah, focus you in other directions. Okay, so save a lot of man hours. Okay.
To be able to spend more time on our artwork.
Not just Stephanie, but also Cody and his department.
As I build bench strength in the finance department, I'll be able to teach some of my staff this process instead of this. Because right now, in my finance department, I'm the only one with experience on this whole mess. So
So people send you stuff and then
They
you
call it job security.
It would make everything kind of run more efficient, yeah? You think as a whole with this, it'd make the whole city run more efficient as far as like processing permits, does that have anything to do with this?
it's not, it's just a budgeting tool, so it would.
It's just budgeting, okay.
It would help whether you're an external customer or an internal to see what is in the budget. To understand the budget, it would be more understandable.
As well as the accessibility and transparency to the public.
Yeah, right, so.
So it's not broken down like this currently. Like we won't be able to find all the details like that as easy.
Oh, I love the PDF. It's very clear.
Yeah.
So you're saying Director Cole would have a lot more time to focus on public works stuff instead of budgeting stuff? All right.
Yeah, he does spend a lot of time on that during budget season. Yeah.
And Pat too.
That you mentioned it.
Spreadsheet.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, if it frees up time as a whole, then these guys can actually focus more on what they're, not saying that they can't do.
Because they love it when I harass them
Of
with
course.
updated numbers.
Of course.
Yeah.
A lot of time.
Mhm. I'm good at it though.
We spent, just to give you an example, on Friday, we spent about 3 hours each in a room together, just hammering out the spreadsheet that we created to give to Stephanie to dissect. Where it'd been nice to be able to just go to a website and put it in so she could go, hey, thanks, you put it in for me. And now she has to go through and dissect the spreadsheet we made.
And that's just for a budget amendment.
So they could use that 3 hours for something else that the city might need accomplished or something else, right?
Right, it's gonna make us all more efficient.
That's what I'm asking in a whole is efficiency as a city and getting things. Basically, when this looks like there's a lot of moving parts, everybody has to huddle together and they're occupied for hours.
Right.
And if they're not occupied for hours, then they can take care of other things.
Exactly.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, not just 20, 30 minutes. We're doing it hours and hours and hours and then it gets passed and passed. Yeah, okay. Cool. Thanks,
And if we were to get a contract by the end of March, then we would have it implemented for the next budget season starting in August. So, great.
Thank you.
So no pressure.
Think about it. Thank you.
Peanut gallery back here.
Oh, peanut gallery, Stephanie.
Guys,
If I want to go into the budget and just, see what's available. Currently, we go into bias and we call a report that has our current budget and our expenses today.
Right.
Would we still be doing that, or will we now be using this software for anytime we want to look at?
So you could probably go up to either one.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, if you want to run like a position report, I don't know if you'll need to, if you can do it out of that system or not. Probably, but we can find out.
All right, you have something new for us, Pat?
Thank
What's that?
you.
You have something new for us?
Stephanie.
No, actually, this is not new at all. This is, most of what I have here for you today is, you should probably know most of this by now, but I'm just here to kind of bring you up to date.
You're gonna see a lot more stuff on the Yelm Loop now that we're moving forward with it. Next year's actual construction. But we want to update on because how often do you meet, Pat and Cody? Like every 2 weeks with Wazat or every month?
I meet, well, it's been monthly, but it's kind of gone back and forth between every 2 weeks and monthly. It's kind of slowing down now, which I'll explain why here in just a second. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Yelm Loop, and I would hope that you are by now, I would think about it.
Been 30 years.
Now, I know this is hard to see, but it's on purpose because there's a lot of detail in here. If you want to come up and look at this after the meeting, you can actually see the layout of the roundabouts here at Wilkinson, 103rd, and at Walmart. And you could actually see where these intersections are going to be, where the road is going to be removed and cul-de-sac off. And those areas where there will be at-grade intersections. So you can kind of see that detail. So,
Is it pretty true to the video that's on YouTube that
well, that's what you're gonna see.
was put up? Yeah, okay.
So for those that you haven't seen it yet, WashDOT took either a drone or a helicopter and flew along the corridor, and then they went and superimposed an image of the Yelm Loop on that video. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'll show it to you now, and then I'll just give you a few details as to where they are. So get this going. I'm not exactly this starts at Walmart and heads north along what is currently Walmart Boulevard. There will be a new roundabout at 103rd. Kind of jerky here, but this will be the new roundabout at 103rd. We'll continue heading north up to where Canal Road currently crosses. That Canal Road will be cul-de-sac off at each end at this particular location. And as we continue up to the next road, which is Flume Road, it's a county road. That will be an at-grade intersection. And just beyond Flume, it's just coming into view here. This is Cochran Park, and there will be a connection to Cochran Park from the track. Longmire, I'm sorry. I deal with Cochran Park all day. Longmire, thank you. Coming up on Roten Road. This will be, I'm sorry, Railway versus Railway, and that will be, as you can see, cul-de-sac off at each.
Yeah, what about the business on the right there? They're gonna have some sort of access around, they gotta go to that.
I'll explain that on the minute.
Perfect, thank you.
This is the Prairie Line Trail, which you can see can be accessed from the trail to the trail along by, along the loop. This is at Wilkinson.
Wow,
Which would be completely changed.
that's amazing.
And you coming up to Canal. And finally, the next road will be,
Have you been told by WSDOT about any of the actual construction, like for the barriers or sound barriers or?
yeah, there will be, actually, it's coming into view right now. There will be a sound wall, a buried wall right along this red line right here for these residents. It's not, I don't think it's in the, yeah, it's not in this video, but there will be a sound wall built along the south side of the loop, north of those residents.
That's a lot of concerns you guys hear from residents. That's one that I've heard a decent amount with all the noise.
Oh, absolutely.
That's something that will be addressed.
And then there's the existing phase one.
Those guys are speeding.
A little bit. We anticipate them.
Yeah, that's something. I hope it's 55, get them around.
So what's happening on it is the construction plans are at 90% complete right now. The only thing that's really still missing from the plan is the bridge that crosses over Yelm Creek.
Right, dead ends.
And the reason for that is because we had to go through a great deal of cultural resource studies. We finally, or the tribe finally came to a memorandum of understanding with WSDOT. That's been finally resolved. Now we know how big to make the bridge, how much we need to span. So the bridge group at WSDOT is working on the bridge portion of it. They will complete that and insert that into the plans, and then it will be ready for bidding and construction. Now, right now, I've been told still, they're looking at a January 25 advertising and bidding.
And that's even with the MOU signed and all that.
The MOU is in the books. Yep. And they had to have that before they could decide for it. So that's where it's at. Another question I've been asked a lot is, there's been a lot of talk about breaking this project up into pieces, like into 3 chunks so that it can be bid to some other contractors as well. I have not seen that yet. I have not seen any evidence that that plan set will be broken up, but that doesn't mean the construction manager that gets the job couldn't break it up and subcontract it into 3 pieces. It makes a lot of sense to do that. The neat part about this job is, except for the section between the new roundabout at Walmart and the roundabout at 103rd, the entire corridor is in land that will not impact any traffic during construction. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to shut down traffic, change lanes. It's all done on land outside of the existing roadway. So that would be very good. Any questions? You have
My concern is when they are working on that loop, those traffic circles, are they going to be similar to the current traffic circle that does the split, where a 53-foot tractor trailer trying to get through there ends up popping up under the curb, causing damage? Are they going to be making sure that that is fixed? And at some point, will that loop be changed from a 2-lane to a 4-lane?
Well, let me answer your second question first. I don't know of any plans to convert this to a 4-lane road. It's currently a 2-lane road, just like the phase 1 is. As for roundabouts, yes, this is not only a WashDOT project being designed for WashDOT standards to handle trucks, but it will be a truck route.
Okay.
So it's taking the place essentially of coming into 510 from the northwest part of town, right through the downtown, all the way up to Walmart. This will provide an alternate route for truck traffic. So absolutely, yes, it's designed for truck. And if you want to see the details of those roundabouts, I have those plans. So if you'd like,
Appreciate it.
I can pull them out of the plan set and shoot them over to you.
Would you send out?
That'd be great.
Just roundabouts.
What's that?
Would you send out to all the council or to me and I can forward it to them?
Yeah, just on roundabouts?
Yeah.
Okay, the plan set is 280.
Yeah, just the roundabouts. If you want something else, we
I'd say
can.
nothing to hate worse than narrow roundabouts and narrow entrances.
Yeah.
Hitting curbs and stuff, that's irritating.
That's one of the other big questions we ask, is it going to be for semis or accessible for semis?
Yep.
And again, I left some detail in here. If anybody wants this, they can have it. I don't need more paper, so
Whatever you want.
if anybody wants.
I'll put that on my wall.
Anything else?
I have a question a little bit on the side of this, but since we're working with WashDOT and we're working with them on doing their project of our first roundabout, is there any way we could contract with them so that we can fix the potholes on the main drag in Yelm and then bill them later or whatever, however that would work?
I'm just not sure.
Bigger.
We kind of are doing that already, just because we want them fixed, and to try to get WashDOT to come out and fix those is, as you know, is not an easy thing.
Not at that.
So we're.
Bigger.
Remember, I had a question.
I did, yes, January 2025 bidding. I was just kind of wondering with our 5 Corners roundabout, is there any way we could push that up? Because once 5 Corners shuts down, that's going to be a major traffic
We've
problem.
been trying.
5 Corners, we don't know yet because we haven't settled on our design.
Right, because of the Morris Road and all that kind of
The
stuff.
timing on that is probably going to work out such that the Yelm, the loop at Walmart will be under construction well before we get to construction on 5 Corners.
That'd be great, yeah, because if we could finish even part of that
The
bypass.
way it's looking right now,
That will happen first. We haven't even started the design yet on 5 Corners. We haven't even made our final selection of how we want it to look and lay out. We're just exploring concept at this point. So at this time, it appears that we won't have a conflict there.
Okay, perfect.
Neither project will shut down during construction, by the way. There's a very complex phasing plan for the roundabout at Walmart to maintain traffic at all times during construction. And we'll be doing the same thing at 5 Corners.
Okay.
Pat, do we know what the suggested speed limit may be on this loop?
75.
I think, is it 45?
The thing was designed to be built for a 55-mile-an-hour speed, but they never generally pushed that far. When they originally opened the thing up, I believe, didn't they have us at 35 miles an hour?
I think it was lower.
And complained and complained, and finally they gave us the formula that you have to have a certain amount of your traffic speeding through there. So our community was very helpful in getting that accomplished and getting it bumped up to what it is now.
Whatever it is on current phase 1, I believe you're correct. I think it is 45. I'm sure.
And it will move pretty quickly too. There's limited access. It's just where, the roundabouts are. Besides that, you can't just go in and out of this way.
Yeah, this is a limited access. There's no driveways. There's no access to it other than at the 3 roundabouts and Agri crossing at Yelm Road and Road.
So I just remember that one WashDOT video, the WashDOT guy said it was being designed for 45, so
That makes sense.
it was still there.
I also noticed that you talked about that there was going to be a sound wall on phase 2. Why is there no sound wall on phase 1?
Well, there's not the residents along there. There is a little bit along, I think it's Cherry Meadows. I do not know. That was many years before I came here. But this is a concern because the road will be immediately adjacent to the backyards of these people. In fact, the fences in their backyard is the right of way line. Right. So this is considerably closer.
Josh is running it, Councilmember Crossman's running it, so Tracy's.
I can add some information on that, why that they didn't put that in there, because this wasn't supposed to still be going on at this point. That was considered part of the overall construction that was going to take place as we went through this, but as you know, things came to a screeching halt. So I imagine that it's probably in their tentative plan to do so at some point in the future. I'm wondering if we have that flyover that we just launched here. Do we have access to that?
Yep. Yeah, that's on YouTube. Yeah.
Very good.
I think we might try, if Lynn's watching, I'm sure she is, we might put that on our social media, trying to recap some of the stuff.
Send that link to it, or just go to,
Got it.
just go to Yelm Loop Phase 2. I bet you will come.
Absolutely.
One more thing, Pat, you know, on the Canal Estates where they took those houses down, this road isn't going there, is it? Canal Estates, which is off Roten Road, Roten and, yeah. Canal.
Yes, it is. There were, originally Canal Estates was a larger subdivision and they decided not to build it at the time that WashDOT started coming through and acquiring property for this. So they never did get built, but the road is there and will remain there.
Took houses down. They demolished about 4 houses or moved them at the time.
I'm not sure where that is, but we can look on here.
They did.
Oh, yeah. Long time ago.
Thank you.
Before past time.
Yeah, I'll leave this here.
I think Cody is.
It's all,
Take it all.
I'll show it to the constituents.
That back.
Thank Pat, I appreciate it.
Signature on there, Pat, for Trevor?
Mental images.
Sign it for me.
There's one more delay, actually. I know. Like after me, something. Man, politics.
Okay.
Trust you.
This will be quick. I just want to, I've talked to Public Services Committee and I wanted to let you guys know and be aware. We have roughly in the EIC, if you remember, we had an EIC grant that was applied for and received in 2021. That grant was expended to create an EIC, which is that Education Innovation Center that's over by where the museum currently is, that houses the library, the museum, and some other offices and some rentable space. The grant was used up partially and we finished that part of the project. There's still roughly 60,000 left in the grant. That gives us an opportunity to use that 60,000 to maybe either flesh out design of the EIC a little bit more. And the reason I'm going to use the term EIC is because that's what the grant is labeled as. Nothing says after the project's done, it has to be named EIC. It's just what the grant's named as. So for namesake of the grant, I'm going to reference it as EIC. So we have about 60,000 left to either flesh out design, do more work on that in the grant. If we don't use that 60,000, it goes back to the pot. And we don't get to access that money. The one thing I want to let you know about is when you have grants and you have money left over, they don't like to see money come back. They have a budget, they issue that money. If money comes back to them, that's money they lose, which means you're not, in the future when a grant application comes up, you're not as desirable because you're someone who didn't spend the money they granted you, which sounds weird. And it's a backwards way of doing government. If you're in the military for any amount of time, that's the right way to do things. You spend every dollar you have so you get that money again next year. But in the terms of grant, it's a good thing to spend the grant money because they have already allocated it to you. If it goes back, it just goes away. So my proposal and the proposal we've come up with kind of as a Public Services Committee and as a mayor and city administrator and management team is to use that 60,000 to not only flesh out the design a little bit more, make some modifications to it, get some actual design of frontage improvements, do a survey of the land, a formal survey, and some other things on using that grant money because why not? It's there to use. We might as well do that. And so what I was hoping is that getting your kind of acknowledgement if you have some questions, and then we could bring a more formal proposal to you later this month to, allocate that money with the same company that did the original design to kind of flesh it out some more.
With design processes, once you get a design made, from my understanding is you can actually use that design, not just at that one location, but anywhere.
Yes, there's things about the design you can use. If the size of the lot is the same size or bigger, you can always use the same building design. So correct, we could create a building design that we could use somewhere else. Infrastructure would need to be changed based on soil, stuff like that. But this would be a really fleshed out conceptual. These wouldn't be fully engineered plans. So yes, this design theoretically could be used anywhere that has a lot big enough to do
You
this.
wouldn't have to go back to the concept of that. Because it always starts out with concept, engineering, and then you put things to action. So if you wanted to utilize this for another thing, you already have a concept paid for, approved, you don't have to go through that process again.
Yeah, it does save you redoing this step somewhere else. So example, if you wanted to design, you want to know how much foot space you needed for like council chambers, city hall, they could do that in that design and I could use that model anywhere to build that. Doesn't have to be at that location because that conceptual design will show, they'll flesh out how many people need to go in there, how big the space needs to be. So you could kind of use design in multiple places.
So we wouldn't just have one design, we would have two?
Correct.
Okay.
We could, yeah, like you said, we could utilize that for other places that the city has, in the future. If council wants to go somewhere out with a new city hall, let's say elements of that could, like you were saying, use, we could save money on.
Yeah, we talked about this public services and we thought it was a good idea. Talked about it for quite a while. Somebody was in Mexico and missed out on that.
Sorry, but I totally agree. Let's work it out. Let's spend that money.
When you work on redoing the concept, because the original concept was just 3 stories because we had not passed the new code of allowing us to go up 1 extra, can we have that included? And as you said, that because the idea came up from Councilmember Kaminsky of if we were to build this, that would become the new city hall for administrative as well as possibly a new council chamber that could be put in there.
Yeah. So yeah, anything can be done. They did have the height limit is taken into account with this. There is still room to go up. So the 3 stories, they're vaulted. So unlike a normal story, which is 13 feet, you have some more vaulted ceilings. So you have some 20 foot, you have a lot, they're using a lot of space. I think the total building height was just about 50 feet, but we can go up to 60. So there is another 10 feet that could theoretically be used for something.
Thank you.
I'm curious, shifting gears a little bit, but talking about this grant money. Now, if this is obviously, as you mentioned, it doesn't specifically have to be used for an EIC. We can use it on whatever we want to use it.
That's why I'm just
in that, within those guidelines, correct?
So the EIC is the grant, what it's for, is it Education Innovation Center Incubator Space is what it was labeled as. It has to be used for.
I can stop you there. What you mentioned also, as well as perhaps a space for the museum, as well as some chambers and things like that. My curiosity lies with this existing building we have over here that's empty right now, was our museum. And I believe I heard that it was dilapidated or something along these lines. My thoughts on that are if we already have this existing building and there's $60,000 left in this grant, is it possible to use that money to update this building and put our museum back in that thing?
So the money has to be used for conceptual design. It couldn't be used for like construction work on it. And there's certain criteria in that grant. It has to have rentable space. It has to have flexible business space. So there's things in that grant that I don't think that museum building would check the box for. So it wouldn't, theoretically, you could make a smaller version that was slightly bigger than that building, but it wouldn't make sense to do that because you have to check all these boxes and they would take up all the space to have that rentable space, the incubator space that it requires in the grant itself.
Okay, so we're talking about spending $60,000 to create another conceptual plan.
It's way more fleshed out conceptual while there's some things like frontage improvements we didn't do. Frontage improvements could be theoretically designed during this, which would save us money because we will, no matter what you build at that part, you're going to have to do frontage. Our code requires us when we build something there to do frontage improvements. So there's things we can do that we're going to have to do anyways that we can get done through the grant, like frontage improvements, the survey of the land. No matter what we build there, we're going to have to survey it. We haven't had a survey done, so we can do that also.
Okay. I think it's important to note that these things do have expirations, these plans. You can't just put it on the shelf and 10 years later pull it off and say, here we go. And, in essence, we've run across this before where we have to start all over again on a plan or a design because it's sat on the shelf too long. Maybe not here in the city necessarily, but in certain other aspects of of our governments, the county, state.
Yeah, and I think what you're mentioning, like standards change, right? You have to go you have to go lead specific and stuff. So you're right, the plans would maybe only have a 10-year lifespan or however long lifespan, but you at least have a starting base for anything you do in the future. So we would never have to go back to scratch. We would have to maybe go back and add, if, you know, they say, hey, law requires everybody to have solar panels on the roof. We may have to go back and add that to a conceptual later on. That was just an example. But
Would it be, now you brought that up, would it
Yes.
be a lead building?
you have to design buildings to lead certification now. And it is a height, you would have to do that.
Good.
No problem. So I'll see you later this month with a formal proposal.
Who's up?
I'm next. I'm next. RFP, or RFQ.
It says RFQ on there, but it is an RFP.
An RFP, request for proposal. We finished it up yesterday, working with the attorney. It will be distributed out and advertised by the end of this week. We have a 30-day window for proposals. So proposals will be due by April 8th. We will have an RFP review committee meet within just a couple days of closing, so we can review all the proposals that we receive. The mayor will choose that committee to review that.
Just real quick, I was thinking about just having Councilmember Crossman on there as the Mayor Pro Tem, but is there interest in having another council member on that as well?
I would like to be on that as well. Thank you.
All right, we'll add another council member to it.
Rate choice voting, get that?
Raise your hand first.
I'll send out an email though and just pick one of y'all to do it.
Okay, so we'll do that with just in a couple days, and then what the committee will present to council, or our recommendation to council by April 23rd. Contracts will be signed the first week of May, and then the timeline for recommendations to council from the group we select will be on or before September 3rd, would be the recommendations that would come to council on actions forward on the 640 acres. So that's the timeline for it. I have copies of the proposal, just front and back page. If anybody wants to see that, I can give you a copy of it. Yeah,
I was gonna ask that. Just because.
Yeah.
It's just a theme.
Yeah, we can pass them around, and so what we'll do is we'll advertise on 3 different locations where required. Go ahead, Cody.
Seattle Daily Journal of Commerce, Nisqually Valley News, and our website.
And you reaching out to companies as
Yeah.
well?
And we'll also reach out to the marketing groups in the area and send them specific, the proposal as well. So we'll do everything we can to get the broadest advertisement for this project. So stand by. That's the timeline. Any questions on that? We'll pass this around. And if you have any questions, call me tomorrow. Come in, doesn't matter.
Hold on you.
No, I know. I was looking at you.
Right.
So the only other thing I'll say about this is I've taken a few calls because they did do a story on the 640 acres, I think, a couple weeks ago at the council meeting when it was discussed, when this was discussed. So we have taken, I've taken at least a couple calls from some folks concerned with what we're going to do with it. Concerned that there's not going to be a public involvement piece on the how it's built out. And so I guess the only thing that I've said to these folks is I've kind of explained this process, that it'll be a very transparent, open and public process before anything is ever decided what to do with it. And so they seem to feel more comfortable when you just take a minute and understand what we're doing. We're literally doing this to make sure what we do is the best thing for the city of Yelm. And so every conversation I've had's ended really well, and they feel really good with how we're doing this, and feel confident we get the best solution.
One thing I found out from people that live around there, and maybe this is well known, but I didn't know, is that there's a huge trail or path of elk that come through that property at somewhere near Mankey Road and cross over the highway. Huge, I mean, 50 herd at a time, whatever.
It is, yeah.
So it'd be kind of cool to have part of like a preserve or something where we could keep some nature, or maybe people could see some of that stuff.
Like a
But
green belt.
Well, we built it
Yeah.
on.
Let's say you look at.
Just a nature preserve of some kind, you know what I mean? And not take away that natural.
Across from Long Shot.
But I'm sure there's probably
Seen them at.
in there and stuff. We could do a little
Okay, so that's what I've seen.
rebuilt path.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be totally built up, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
People that are worried about infrastructure and all this stuff.
Do a giant overpass for them.
yeah, no, I.
Councilmember Kaminsky brought up, Bakersfield, Kern County, Bakersfield has something very similar. They have an area and not only, it's where their herd of particular animals kind of go through, but they actually built stands that you can stand, that you can get up into to be able to see. They found a way to fence it off so that it protected the herd, allowed them to be able to do what they need to do, but then it's a place that when all of a sudden the herd starts showing up, the picnic areas, everything starts filling up. So it becomes a really good,
Before we like backwood.
Or like Jackson.
I'm not gonna lie, when he said stands, I thought, my God,
So I'm sitting right there.
There are some wetlands in that area though that we have to ensure that we protect, that we can't develop or anything. So we've had some early discussions on, possible.
I hope these developers have some good creative ideas about, not just slapping Western houses.
Well,
640 years, make a good elk refuge.
again, that's where I think that, bringing in someone that can guide us and kind of tailor that. And then again, work on the, it's currently zoned as a master plan community. And so, that doesn't change. It still has to be a master plan community unless you all chose to do that. But
Well, somebody could buy and just do nothing with it, right?
well, I guess they could.
That's part of this, why this company is gonna search.
Yeah, somebody, I'm not forcing people to develop it. Somebody wants to buy in this because they want 640 acres, because they think in 50 years it might be worth their investment.
So,
Yeah.
Keep it for 50 years.
so part of the RFP does cover the marketing of that property. And so, which will be another very public piece that will come back to you when the selection is made on the marketing of the property and who we're targeting and marketing and what we would like to see from that, sale. And so, and again, I think that there's tons of feedback like the elk, and there's people that talk to, they want more park space, right? They want more ball fields. They want, these types of things, which I think, everybody shares that with them. But I think it's just a tremendous opportunity for the city to really do something special, with this. So.
Something I'm kind of tired of seeing is the stacked on top of cookie cutter house that you have no yard space, you have no place for your kids. Like I'd like to have Yelm more like the throwback of maybe the ranch style home even with the big lot and I don't like being stacked on.
That's requirements.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the housing allocation studies and all that we have to.
I know some of that's state mandated now and they get everything, but
I think there's a way to do it that it looks appealing,
What about nice houses on 1 acre? So that maybe Cody could buy a house with some acreage and still be in the city limits. You know what I'm saying? And that's
About this at the retreat, right?
segue into,
I think so.
Yeah, so let's
the other thing is,
talk about all
we
that.
get the results from the cruise, the tree cruise, the timber cruise.
Originally, we did.
Yeah, we had the initial estimate from them, yeah.
Just get 6 million.
Part of this study, again, will redo all that kind of stuff and tell us where the value is at and what to do with
It
it.
was around 6 million or so
Only 6 million? That was
at the time.
It was five for the
was like
trees.
over 10.
so what we're looking at as a product that comes from this, when all is completed and represented to us, is that we as a council are going to come up with a choice of leave it as master plan community or rezone so that when we either sell off or whatever, it is told the developer, whoever purchases how much acres, they know exactly what they're allowed to do on that property.
It's not just necessarily one or the other. I mean, there's anything is possible. The council decides.
Right, but we can't keep the master plan community.
We'd have to rezone it. Yes. If you want to change it, there'd have to be a vote from.
And that's what I'm saying is
the
that
planning count or
We
planning.
still have the control of what it is, what it turns out to be. And the other piece of this that will be very beneficial to us is work with the neighboring properties, one of which is the other 600 plus acres that we need to have access to our 640. So this group would do all that. They would work with them to get the access to find out, what can we do in exchange for the land we need to get through there. They literally cover all that for us. And then, maybe it's, there's been some talk about the Southern Loop, right? The Southern Loop goes through that 4-lane highway goes to 507, clear out to 510 here. Maybe that's the best solution, is we put the loop in, we put the bypass in before one house is built. So I think those are the things that are going to come back to council by the end of this time and say, these are the top 3 recommendations that you have, and we can decide what to do with it by then, so.
And the one thing about the master plan community is you guys still, unlike everything else, the site plan becomes used similar to Tomatera commercial. So if you, depending on what happens, if you go through the master plan community process and it stays that, if you still have to present it with a site plan, you'll approve. That'll show a mix of commercial and residential, a bunch of different mixes on the master plan community. It's not just cookie cutter houses. And if you don't want to see cookie cutter houses, you could say, this is what we want to see. And that's what the RFP will be designed. But master plan community gives you a lot of control. Whereas other zones, they just submit what fits the zone and we approve it.
There we go.
Like Councilmember Crossman said, it will be discussed highly at our council retreat. Yep. Perfect. So, and we will hopefully at this point have actual proposal. It's not be ready to go and all that. No, yeah, I think it's close like a week prior to when we go out. So we'll have a lot of information to discuss. For my report, I had a good meeting with the superintendent earlier today. Just kind of talking about the levy impact to the city and potential, cuts to the school. And obviously that's a school board decision. If the or the levy passes or fails, that's all up to the school board. But we do have some interest in that as a city, in the form of SROs, school resource officers. So we just kind of discussed that, and it's something that is levy funded, and I'm not trying to put words in their mouths or anything, but it could be, a potential cut. We're trying to avoid that, and I'm gonna, even if it levy does fail, I'm gonna work with the superintendent to ensure that schools are safe and our school resource officers are still in there. But
So is that fully funded by that, or how much percentage of that is it complete?
I don't know the
You don't know,
percentage or
but the
anything.
levy does affect the SRO.
Correct.
And
It
we
is
have
partly funded by that, if not all 3.
the 3 SROs, which actually those same SROs are able to be used for city as well, not just.
We contract with the schools, so they have certain times they're in there, but they do help us. I mean, if there's an emergency, they can move to take care of it. And it supplements our chief administrator. Do you want to kind of talk about what it supplements and the other, or Stephanie wants to?
Yeah, so right now their contract for, they pay 75,000, right? For 3 full-time SROs in the school. So it works up to 225,000 a year. Plus I think there's a 5% increase for different sorts of what like that. And so they're in the school during school hours, and then outside of school hours, they work patrol, or they get reassigned to, some other matter. So is that what you were asking?
Well, yeah, and just beyond that as well, with those 3 SROs, what is the complete officer count that we have for the city
That's budgeted for 19.
with the SROs?
Yeah.
So then that would affect at least 3 officers, bring us down to.
Well,
You mean if they didn't
If
pay
they
for the
didn't,
3
yeah.
SROs, potentially you'd lose the 225,000.
Right.
we try to work in our budget to ensure that they don't lose their.
And so the chief, the real chief, has had a lot of conversations with the school since the first failing of it. And obviously they're optimistic that they can keep the SROs in there,
Right.
but of course.
And I don't think this is something that a lot of people are aware of as far as the levy supporting that as well. So that might be something that needs to be vocally shared, or I didn't know that till now. So.
Well, yeah.
And like I said, I'm not trying to put words in their mouths and speak for the schools, but they don't want to lose those officers. They don't, so they'll do everything they can within their general, they'd have to fund it through their general fund rather than levy funds. So.
My question, the state's constitutionally mandated to fund the schools. And why aren't they funding the schools? Why do we need levies?
Yeah, that's a good question. We shouldn't have to, but that's the way our state works. where there's a lot
They're
of,
shirking their constitutional responsibilities.
well, you could argue
I
that.
mean, I'm not gonna say it, but
I'm not saying that or not,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's funded differently in other states. I can say that.
yeah, I don't know. It seems like, they waste a lot of money on things and they're mandated to fund, and if we have to pass levies to fund the schools properly, then the state's not doing their job.
These are also additional stuff like extracurricular activities like sports too.
Mhm.
That's where a lot of the big hits would come from. But again, none of this is guaranteed. It's all the school board's decision, how they do that, how they adjust if the levy fails. And I believe it's 14% of their budget or 13%. I don't know. No one knows off the top of their head.
It did fail, 55 to 45 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's a significant cut if they have to. make those.
The individuals that are funded through that, a lot of the services are like the counselors, the nurses, the people to help out with the ADA side of the house. So those are the ones that are mostly going to be affected. So in reference to the education, they're still paying for the school books, the teachers. No teachers funded through the levy. It's the people that assist the students with getting.
So if these are the things that make a school function properly, I think Jay Inslee's failing in his duties. I mean, he wants to waste money on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. It's actually
We
great.
will be having the superintendent come in here later this month at our March 24th meeting.
For the record, Jay.
March 24th meeting, and he can answer questions too the council has on that stuff. Other than that, right now we have 3 council applicants for the open seat, unless there's more in the last couple hours. We'll email them. When does it close? Or is it?
Let's come Friday.
Right. We will email on Thursday, and if there's another, we'll email that. But we'll email these candidates, make sure that they're at the.
I thought it was last Friday. This Friday. Okay. We got.
We can send that out to you. I mean, of who's on the list right now.
Right in front of me.
I know a couple off the top of my head, but I don't want to share that unless I know everybody's. But yeah, we can get that information to you. Absolutely. But yeah, they'll be interviewing on upcoming city council meeting. We'll make sure they have all the information, and the following city council meeting, I'll put it upon the agenda for council to vote on. So that's all I've got.
All right, moving down the line. Anybody got anything? No? Good. Okay.
Just want to ask, the black fence at Old City Hall, who's in charge of that, and when is it going to be changed?
We're working with their CEO.
On the list, Terry.
But yeah, Cody.
Things are on for a long time.
Yeah, so we met with them last month.
She doesn't like him.
And that is definitely, they're going to fix that. They understand that. She is actually coming to April study session to give an update on the Boys and Girls Club in general. And so they know that the fence is a must do. And I believe they've applied for some beautification money to help them fix that. So they're all on board with fixing that. They understand it's a priority for us to make sure that they meet our codes and come into compliance as soon as they can. So. Yes.
On fences. That was great. That was the great segue. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've had a lot of people complain about no fence around Yelm City Park with kids running towards the roads and such, if that's something we could look into moving forward. And then people have also complained about the, where the pay and spray car wash is, and there's the former child care center next to that with the 6-foot tall cedar fence right on Yelm City Road. Why they get a fence right along the road when nobody else is allowed to do that. So as far as compliance, missed that.
I think they're allowed.
Yeah, you're allowed to have that kind of fence on there. And I think state standards require them as a daycare facility, because I think it is a daycare again, Mini Moose, I believe is the name of it.
Okay.
They're required to have state standards, some kind of barrier between them and there that is not see-through for children.
Yeah, I think.
It can't be 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so that was my question on that. I just wanted some clarification. I've had like 4 people bring it up.
I think they're in total compliance.
Yeah, we actually just met with them probably a month ago because they were trying to open a new daycare. And we went through, they had to go through a bunch of steps to be able to open it.
So the particular person was like, well, I want a 6-foot fence to block traffic. I was like, well, let me check on that for you.
Come on down if you want to build a fence and we'll let you know if you can.
Yeah, so, okay. Two more things. Few more things. Parking spots came up again at our new apartment complexes around town with people parking all over the roads. 1.8 is not enough parking spaces per apartment unit. I've been asked to request 4 because 2 spouses, and then they have a child, and then if you have a guest over one night. So they think 4 is a better number for keeping people off the street parking and
Apartment,
for apartment complexes.
you can see that in a lot of houses.
I mean, if we're gonna start pumping in apartment complexes and, I mean, that's the reality, like you have at least 2 spouses, 1.8 is not gonna be enough.
Yeah, right.
4 might be high, we can settle on 3.
Say 4 is, you don't see a lot of houses with 4.
Negotiate down to 3, but I mean, like, 1.8 is not enough. You got people parking all over the roads now in certain areas.
I don't know if you want-
I'm seeing.
If you want me to respond, I can, or do you got?
In my opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I can, there's a couple of things about that. You guys, 100% of the code can be changed to require more parking or require less parking. That can be something to do. There are state requirements about parking, and one of the things they have been moving towards is less parking because it's restrictive for people and encouraging more, like if parking is, and I know parking, if it's near transportation, like a bus stop, they even get less parking by our code because it helps them. And that I know specifically there's like the Squally Landing apartments, which you may be referencing. There's a bus stop right on Walmart Boulevard. And so they have, I think, actually more spots than they were required. And they were able to use less because of that bus stop, but they still built a bunch and they want to build more. The one thing, it is very prohibitive. I can tell you a couple of people we have proposals, they can't build because they can't put enough parking in.
Right.
Because they think our parking is still our parking requirements are too much for what they want to do. So I would be happy to have a conversation. If council wants to increase that, there will be some disadvantages to that. There will be some benefits. Obviously, you'll get more parking, but there will be a lot of places that currently have parking requirements that even they still think are too restrictive for places trying to come in. They need less to be able to do less parking, and so trying to find ways around that.
And I'd like to review some of that, because like you go down Berry Valley Road and you can't even drive down that street because all the duplexes have so many people.
It's an old street standard. Yeah, that's before the current standard.
That is old street standard.
That is an old one, I know, but yeah. And then, if inner city transit's a problem, we could get rid of them. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'll chat with you offline, Councilmember Palmer, a little bit about the parking requirements and how they come with those.
Perfect. And then one more thing. I've been approached by the 3 businesses in town that pay poll tab taxes, and ours are more, and maybe this is a question for Stephanie even, but ours are more prohibitive than even the states. We tax them on gross, where the state taxes them on net. So they
Look into it.
they were wondering if we could take a look at the poll tab taxes in this town.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge impact for the city.
Yeah, because I mean, there's only 3 businesses and it's
pretty
cost prohibitive for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, we can absolutely look into that.
Perfect. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'm curious about the railroad ties that are still left after that group came in and took all the steel. What's going on with those? Are these?
Those will be removed later, probably, I would imagine later this month.
June?
We'll have the project. No, we didn't know how much money we had in the grant. There is money left over in the grant, so there will be a proposal to you guys later this month that'll have removing that railroad ties along with adding some other stuff to use that entire grant money. We wanted to be conservative with that grant and not overspend the grant. We ended up saving, we're way below what the grant has. So we're gonna use that money to remove the rest of those railroad ties. So the railroad ties we got and put up signage and some other barriers and protective barriers, like you mentioned, to kind of make protection on that trail too.
Did we make any revenue on the recycling or whatnot of all that steel?
Correct. Yes, we made roughly, don't quote me on top of my head, but I think it was like $15,362.48. That was the number it was. Yeah. But we made on that with the second set of rails. The first set of rails we sold that were taken out a long time ago that were sitting in our yard. We sold those, we made about $6,000 for those. So when a company came out, what they do is the rails actually valued about 40,000, but they come out and remove them and charge you the difference. So they recycle the rails for you and pay you for the difference. So
So I guess I was under the impression that was part of the deal, that they were gonna remove all those railroad ties as well when they took the.
So the ties that were interfering with the trail, yes. So they did remove all the railroad ties that were interfering with the trail. That rail that was already laid was next to the trail that was
Well, I
already laid.
understand that, but
Yeah.
if that were the case, I just don't understand why we made a deal to, lowballed on the value of that steel and not included removing those railroad ties.
So in order for them, the people that recycle the rail, so it's two different companies. The people that recycle the rail to remove the railroad ties, we would have taken a hit. We would have actually lost money overall. So we would end up paying them to recycle the railroads and get rid of the ties. This way, we could use the grant to remove the railroad ties and not have to take a financial hit. So we were actually net profited about $20,000, whereas if we would have had them do it, we would have lost roughly, take that 20,000, we would have lost that 20,000 and paid a couple $1,000s. So instead we get a grant to pay for it and we get to bank the money on the rails. So.
Cool.
Yes. We did. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.